Hi, it's John Rinaldi from Real Time Automation. I've got another one of my videos today. I want to talk about historians and edge gateways. I think that there's a lot of confusion. What's the difference between them? There's a lot of stuff that's exactly the same between them. So let's talk about the stuff that's identical between them. I'm gonna do this in green if Rob, our producer, says that we can see green. So the first thing that's the same is ingestion. Right? They have to be able to access data. And now most people talk about PLC data, but there's a lot more stuff on the network than PLC data. You've got UPSs that have data in there about their storage in there. You've got power meters that have data about power. You've got hydraulics and pneumatics that have information about, hey, how's the air pressure been in the factory over the last 2 days? Because that can impact your process. You've got switches, and switches have all sorts of things like, hey, there's been CRC errors on port 7 of this switch, and the messages are still getting through, but they're having a hard time getting through. So there's a lot more data. So ingestion, of course, without ingestion, nothing else works. Now once you ingest stuff, you have to do pre-processing of that. What does that mean? Well, you have to normalize and scale it, because I talked to a guy that does organic milk. So he goes to this farm and the tank levels are all in millimeters. He goes to another farm and they're doing inches and feet. And he goes, and this one is in centigrade, the other one's in Fahrenheit, and there's all sorts of other variables, and everything's in, sometimes it's in one place to use Modbus. Modbus is all unsigned integers. So you got a number in a Modbus register that's 52. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean 52 inches, 52 meters? Does that mean 52 degrees? You have no idea. It's just an unsigned integer. So this pre-processing step is really important. We have to get all this stuff normalized so that you can read it. It can be understood when it gets to the destination system. Another thing that's common between these two is modeling. The data needs to be, you need to get the data collected in a standard way. Modeling is really simple. I mean, there's a lot of advanced models, but modeling is really nothing more than bring all the data together and put it together in a way that's standardized so people understand what they're going to get. So if you're getting data from the UPS and the power meter and the switch, and then from some PLC data, you put that into a model so that it knows that all this data belongs together because it's all part of line 7, for example. And then today, the other thing that's really common is cybersecurity, which that hasn't been the case for a long time. Now, we could get it. I've done other discussions on cybersecurity, and that's a great big topic. The thing about cybersecurity is it really matters where you're going to put these guys. If you're burying them inside your manufacturing system, inside the control system within the firewall, then you don't really care a whole lot about cybersecurity because that's going to be taken care of at another level. But if you're putting it in a situation where the historian or the edge gateway is going to send data out into the enterprise or the cloud, now cybersecurity is really important, and you got to make sure that you meet the requirements of your plant. So those are some of the things that are the same. Now, what are the things that are kind of different? Well, so if we go on the historian side, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you could be different on the historian side. The collection, the frequency of collection is something that would be different. How often, because in some applications you want to collect data really fast. If it's a tank level, maybe you only need to collect it every minute. You might want to collect it at the end of job, the end of the day, the end of the week, the end of the month. Whatever it is, there's all sorts of things. The frequency is really important. An edge gateway is going to collect data and just keep, pretty much continuously and just keep streaming it out to the enterprise. But a historian is going to collect data on a frequency. Then there's going to be some storage, of course, because that's the thing. Hey, it's a historian. It stores data. Another thing you're going to need that's different here is time stamping, because you're not streaming data. See, over here, we're just streaming data. But over here, we're going to put a timestamp on there. Now, where does the time come from, right? Is it a local time that's on the machine where the data is being collected? Is there an NTP server that's delivering the network time from someplace else? Is it P2P? I think that's networked. There's other, I forget what the PTT, whatever that is, but there's some other ways. There's all kinds of ways of getting that timestamp, and you want to make sure that you're getting something that works well. And then there's sometimes if it's in the really big systems, there's compression. Now with compression, if you're going to store hundreds of thousands and millions and terabytes of information, you want to compress it probably, so it doesn't just eat up all the disk space you have inside the company. So compression could be important. And then of course there's publishing. Now both sides here are both edge gateways and historians are going to publish. But historians publish, they can publish CSV files is one way to get data out of a historian. You could publish JSON. So it depends. Do you want all of the data that's been stored for the last week or the last day or the last hour? Or do you want just a couple of instances? Because this could be, you could just send out some JSON that has a few of it. You could send out a CSV file. You could FTP the CSV file. There's all sorts of ways that historians publish, and that's typically going to be different than how this is going to publish. This is going to publish, on MQ2T, and there's some other, there's Kafka is another way of doing this. There's different, there's OPC UA. There's a whole different ways of publishing in an edge gateway. So those are kind of the differences between the two of them. And the big thing here, the other big thing that I want to mention here is deployment. How are you going to deploy these things? There's two ways to deploy it: hardware and software. Of course, software, the difference is the licensing issues. If you could deploy software, you're probably going to have to pay licensing fees. If you get a hardware gateway like the RTA historian, the RTA, it's all hardware. So you buy it and you put it on the machine and you're done. You'd never have to pay another dime again. So there's advantages to both of these. Depends what the application is. It depends on where you're putting this. Depends if you already have a VM available for the software. It depends. So, but I would like to mention the RTA historian is kind of a melding of both of these, right? It has all of these features, but we're not in the high volume kind of application. So we really don't do compression because it's not necessary in the kinds of applications that this is targeted for. But we do all of this stuff. We can collect data at different kinds of frequencies. We can put timestamps on. We have local storage. We can publish it. We can publish it both as files, or we can publish it as streaming if you'd like. So we have a great collection of both of those. I think I have one right over here. This is the box. This is the box that you get for a historian. It's a nice little DIN rail box, and we've been very successful with it. It's selling like crazy. I think you should probably want to try one. They're really pretty inexpensive, and it has the best of both worlds from historians and edge gateways. So if you have any questions about this, we got people standing by on the phones. We got some really great people who love to talk to customers, love to help you talk about your application. You can get in contact with me or get in contact with our engineers. That's the kind of company we are. We really exist here to help you get your problem solved. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you in the next video.